Welcome back to FHIR and 5. We're up to the letter J, and in this series I decided that we'd have a look at JSON Web Tokens, or JWTs. It's a separate standard outside of FHIR, but I think it's important to have a look at how JWTs are used in a FHIR context. As I've mentioned on a number of previous sessions, FHIR takes other standards that are used out in the wide world and brings it to a healthcare context. So if we look at things like OAuth, they're brought into the FHIR standard to make sense of authentication and authorization. JWTs also have a role to play, both from an OAuth point of view, but also in other parts of FHIR. So I thought it was important to understand where they sit and how they relate to FHIR. So JSON Web Tokens, or JWTs. There's the URL that you need to go to find out some more information around JWTs and how they're used. So JWT.io, it's a great resource for finding out more about the standard, but also a way of generating your own JWTs in an easy to use manner. It is a separate standard, as I mentioned, so we've pulled the best parts of World Wide Web technologies into FHIR, and JWT is one of those. We've already talked about some of the uses for JWTs within FHIR when we looked at the authorization, authentication and access controls right at the start of this series. And certainly it plays a big part in that aspect around generating JWT tokens to allow that authorization, authentication to occur. There's other reasons that we use it. We can sign a bundle within FHIR, and the signature is a JWT, or it's based on JWT and JWS. So a way of digitally signing a payload so you can be assured that the content hasn't been tampered with. Some of the other examples or ways that we use JWTs is for Smart on FHIR app launches. So when we launch a Smart on FHIR app from an EMR or a patient administration system, it uses JWTs in that mechanism. So if you're definitely using Smart on FHIR apps, you'll get experience in dealing with JWTs, and certainly follow the launch URL there around Smart on FHIR. Smart health cards. So if you're building a smart health cards application, perhaps an immunization application that's showing immunization status or vaccination status, you'll utilize the smart health cards functionality, which has JWTs within it to generate a payload. It's nice and small. It can be digitally signed, so you can be assured that the content that you've created as part of that payload is true and correct. I guess the extension from smart health cards beyond the JWT is then creating a QR code based on that content. So if we look at the structure of a JWT, there's three parts. There's the header, the payload, and the signature. On the right there's an example of a JWT that I created using JWT.io. The header contains some information around the algorithm that's used to sign, the type of document that this thing is, so it's a JWT. The payload is that thing that I'm going to then use to transport whatever information it is that I want to transport. So in the case of a smart health card, that'll be a minified bundle containing the patient and their vaccination status, if that's the use case you're using for the smart health cards. Then what happens is that we generate a signature using that algorithm that we specified in the header, and that goes in the signature. So the very first part of this JWT in red is the header, the purple is the payload, and the blue is the signature. And you'll see there base64 URL encoded strings, with the blue one being a signature as well. So we've signed using the specific algorithm, and then base64 URL encoded that string. You'll see the two periods, so separating the header from the payload and the payload from the signature, and that's just the way that JWTs are structured. The signing process can either use a secret or a public-private pair to perform the signing. It's really easy to set up and quite straightforward to implement. And as I've said before, there are quite a few places throughout the FHIR specification you'll come across this, especially if you're dealing with Smarter on FHIR apps. You'll definitely see this. But if you're getting into areas like signing records, like signing a bundle as I suggested, you'll be looking at JWTs. You'll also be looking at JWSs to do that signature process. So what I would say is you may not encounter JWTs an awful lot, but you will see them when you're working with FHIR, and at least you'll know where to go to get some more information around the specification.